The Sandtable is a great tool for leveling up and even working on your equipment late game. So today we're going to go over how to deal more damage against the Sandtable so you can get more rewards. Starting off with the components, arguably the most important thing to get right to maximize your damage against the Sandtable, there are several setups you will use depending on where you're at in the game. Now, prior to level 60, the game does restrict which components you can put in which slots. So if you have not hit level 60, there is only one setup that makes sense to use, and that would be the PvP setup, which includes weapon buff, armor buff, high rate of fire, damage decrease, and damage increase. However, once you reach level 60, there are two different setups that you can try depending on the strength of your account. The first setup is taking the PvP setup and instead of high rate of fire, you replace it with dex buff. This gives you a chance to dodge, which increases your survivability, allowing you to deal more damage against the Sandtable with the time you have. The second setup that you could try is the world boss setup, which includes hit, crit damage, crit buff, weapon buff, and damage increase. You will have to try both setups to see what works best for your account. Generally, the world boss setup is going to be helpful early game and late game, and then there is a sweet spot in the middle where the PvP setup with dex buff is going to be more effective. So every now and again, switch up your components to see if you have reached the next stage. As far as the heroes that you should use against the Sandtable, I wouldn't recommend working on a hero for the sole purpose of increasing your damage against the Sandtable exercise. Instead, use the best heroes that you have on hand. However, early game, there are a couple heroes worth mentioning that can greatly increase your damage against the Sandtable, and those would be Sam and Merida. Sam only works with Army, and Merida only works with Navy. Unfortunately, Air Force doesn't really have a comparable hero, but these two heroes have the ability to make it so the Sandtable is unable to attack altogether. Merida even has the ability to have the Sandtable have a chance of attacking itself, increasing your damage. This is very helpful early game when the Sandtable can still take out an entire stack of your units in one hit. However, once you get far enough that you can start surviving some hits from the Sandtable, these heroes are likely going to be a hindrance more than they are going to help you, and instead you should replace them with something more offensive. The next thing you can do to increase your damage against the Sandtable is work on your general skills, which is unlocked at level 80. Here you are able to increase the battle round cap. Without this ability, you are able to go 36 rounds against the Sandtable before it automatically kicks you out of the fight, regardless of whether or not you have units left or not. By increasing this to the maximum, plus 15, you are able to go 51 rounds against the Sandtable, greatly increasing your damage because you can stay in the fight longer. Another strategy you can use against the Sandtable, very late game once you have a well-developed account, is you'll notice that you can only use 200 of each unit type. Once your march size gets close to or exceeds 200, where you start using a different type of unit in your march, you want to put those units up front, starting with slot number 3. And the reason for this is that's the first slot that the Sandtable will attack. Since your off unit will do less damage compared to your main unit, the off unit is there to buy your main units as much time as possible by tanking hits from the Sandtable, allowing your main units to deal maximum damage for longer. Lastly, just a couple things to keep in mind while you're trying to climb the Sandtable leaderboards, which, by the way, what's your guys' best score? Mine is 3.4 trillion, which is actually pretty low for my server, but something to keep in mind is the Sandtable appears to be unaffected by suppression, so unfortunately, Navy, you don't get that suppression advantage against it, and Army is going to have the best advantage against the Sandtable because it only attacks a single target, but it attacks it much harder than a Navy or Air Force would, so naturally, at the top of the leaderboard, you're usually going to see people with Army marches or Army mains. But that's okay, because the Sandtable leaderboards don't give you any extra rewards. All that matters is you're getting extra rewards and beating your previous score. Thank you guys for watching, and have a fantastic day.